Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of UP Cephal Philippines, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. This afternoon's webinar, Mapping of Filipino Seafarers in the Domestic and International Maritime Industry, presents a data snapshot from phase one of the research project led by Dr. Joffe B. Santarita. More importantly, it aims to foster meaningful dialogue on key challenges related to Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 10, reduce inequalities. Through this discussion, we hope to contribute to evidence based conversations on enhancing the visibility and inclusion of Filipino seafarers in the maritime labor data and policy sectors. My name is Lance Mendoza, Program Officer of UP Cephal Philippines. As an enthusiast of migration studies, governance, and public policy, it is my pleasure to serve as today's moderator and host for the program. Before we begin, before we officially begin, allow me to share a few house rules to help ensure a smooth and productive session. First, please keep your microphones muted throughout the webinar unless you are invited to speak. Second, you may submit your questions at any time through the Zoom Q&A box. We will address as many questions as we can and as time permits during the discussion period. We also encourage everyone to remain respectful and professional in all of our interactions today. And finally, this webinar is being recorded for documentation and educational purposes. Thank you for your cooperation. Without further ado, let us begin our program. To formally welcome all of our participants, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our opening speaker. Joining us today is Mr. Alex Mejia, Director of the Division for People and Social Inclusion at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, also known as UNITAR, where he also serves as the Senior Manager of the Social Development Program. And in addition to that, he leads UNITAR's global network of 30 Cephal training centers and oversees key and several key initiatives, including the Nigeria Project Office and the Human Mobility Program based in New York. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Alex Mejia for his opening remarks.
Dear friends, warm greetings to you all from the United Nations Institute for Training and Research here in Geneva, Switzerland. My name is Alex Mejia. I'm really pleased to join you today for this important conversation on the mapping of Filipina seafarers in the domestic and international maritime industry. Allow me to first congratulate University of the Philippines, Cephal Philippines, on its 10th anniversary and for many success in creating a meaningful space for dialogue, knowledge exchange, and action toward the Sustainable Development Goals. I also extend my appreciation to Dr. Joffe Santarita and the research team, as well as to all partners and participants joining us from across sectors. As you know, the maritime industry really has long been a cornerstone of global trade, economic development, and human mobility. The Philippines, in particular the Philippines, has made a remarkable contribution to the global maritime workforce, with Filipino seafarers serving aboard vessels all around the world. Yet, behind these impressive figures lies an important question: who is visible within the data and whose experiences remain undocumented? Today's webinar addresses a critical gap in our understanding of the maritime sector, the experiences, contributions, and realities of Filipina seafarers. Despite progress in many areas, women remain significantly underrepresented in maritime occupations, particularly in leadership, technical, and operational roles. Many continue to face barriers related to access, advancement, workplace culture, and protection from discrimination and harassment. We at UNITAR and at the United Nations as a whole, we believe that inclusive and sustainable development begins with evidence, data. So reliable, disaggregated, and accessible data enables governments, institutions, and stakeholders to identify inequalities, design responsive policies, and measure progress towards meaningful change. Mapping the participation of women in maritime work is therefore not simply a research exercise. It is an essential step towards ensuring that no one is left behind. So this initiative resonates strongly with the principles of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It contributes very much to SDG 5 on gender equality, SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, and to SDG 10 on reduce inequalities by helping ensuring that underrepresented groups are visible in policies, programs, and decision-making processes. As we gather today, I encourage all of you, dear participants, to view this discussion not only as an appropriate opportunity to examine data, but also as an opportunity to listen to the stories, aspirations, and challenges behind the numbers. Finally, on behalf of the United Nations and of UNITAR, I thank you, CIFAL Philippines and the University of the Philippines for their continued commitment to advancing sustainable development in the Philippines and beyond, for focusing on capacity building and for dealing with multi-stakeholder engagement. This is why this is important, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mejia, for your inspiring message and for reminding us of the importance of partnerships, inclusion, and evidence-based policymaking in advancing sustainable development, as well as in advancing effective and inclusive maritime governance. Mr. Mejia's remarks underscore the importance of ensuring that no sector remains invisible in our pursuit for these goals. And today's data snapshot directly contributes to that goal by shedding light on the participation and experiences of Filipina seafarers, an often underrepresented yet vital segment of the Philippine maritime workforce. To present the findings from the first phase of this research project, it is my honor to introduce Professor Joffe B. Santarita. Dr. Santarita is a professor and college secretary of the University of the Philippines Asian Center and previously served as its dean. He earned his doctorate in South Asian Studies from the National University of Singapore and has built an extensive body of work on migration, maritime affairs, and South and Southeast Asian relations. His research focuses on the movement of people, ideas, and capital across the region, and his contributions to education and scholarship have earned him numerous distinctions, including the Gawad Chancellor para sa Natatanging Guro and recognition as UP Social Scientist 3. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcome Dr. Joffe B. Santarita. Dr. Joffe, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. So, Director Calumbarit, Professor Lucia Tangi, Ma'am Fresca Lugov Marina, and of course, VP Noy Amante of Soler, and of course, Director Alex Mejia, and reliable staff of the UPCFAL, Lance, Elora, and Adriana, and the rest of our UPCFAL. Magandang hapon at maraming salamat. So, next slide, please. So, I would like to acknowledge my deepest gratitude to all individuals and organizations whose support and expertise made this study possible. My heartfelt thanks to my research assistant, Marta Pareñas, and of course, some gatekeepers like Mark Glenn Villamor and of course, my relatives for their invaluable assistance. So I'm highly indebted to the University of the Philippines, CIFAL, for providing a critical institutional backing. And of course, special recognition is due to the Maritime Industry Authority, or MARINA, particularly to STCW Office Executive Director Samuel Batalla, and of course Sir Harold Daron, and to the Department of Migrant Workers, specifically Assistant Secretary Jerome Alcantara, and Director Charles Tabo for sharing their information. So I also extend my sincere appreciation to Attorney Henry Zamora of the AMOSOP for his information, for the information he provided. And finally, this work would not be complete without crucial contributions of the anonymous respondents. I think the pilot test for the informants who generally share their time and, of course, perspectives. Next slide. So the primary objective of this project, initial phase, this is only phase one, is to conduct a comprehensive quantitative assessment of Filipino participation within both domestic and international maritime sectors. So you'll see that the first three questions, our first three objectives are definitely targeted for the phase one, while the last part will be, the comprehensive discussion once the phase two begins actually in the coming years. But I also provided some preliminary based on the pilot testing that we made to respondents, about 12 of them, courtesy of AMOSOP Manila. So next slide, please. So who is actually a Filipina seafarer? So a Filipina seafarer is definitely defined as a woman of Filipino origin who is employed, engaged, and works in any capacity aboard a commercial sea-going vessel. So this operational definition aligns directly with the comprehensive standard set by the Maritime Labor Convention, or MLC, in 2006, which encompasses all personnel serving on a ship to which the convention applies. Consequently, this designation fully covers individuals fulfilling duties across all primary shipboard departments, specifically including members in the deck, engine, and catering crews. Next slide, please. So the Philippine maritime industry heavily relies on a concentrated group of nations staff its international fleet, with the top 10 seafarers supplying nations in 2023 exhibiting distinct workforce distributions. Led by the Philippines, China, and India, these 10 countries provide the vast majority of the world's operational crew, split between specialized officers and, of course, general ratings. So the data reveals a clear regional dominance, with Asian nations occupying the top 4 positions and contributing the highest overall volume of maritime personnel to global trade routes. While the Philippines serves as the uncontested leader across both crew tiers, the remaining top nations demonstrate varying ratios of skilled officers to supportive ratings. Major suppliers like China and Indonesia, for instance, lean toward a higher proportion of officers, reflecting strong domestic maritime training frameworks. Next slide. Official deployment data from 2023 underscores the massive scale of the Philippine maritime workforce, while highlighting a profound gender imbalance within the sector. So according to records from DMW in 2024, a staggering total of 578,238 Filipino seafarers were actively deployed globally. However, the workforce remains overwhelmingly masculine, with male personnel comprising 93.89% of the total deployed population. This stark baseline confirms that international seafaring remains a highly gender-segregated population, or rather, gender-segregated occupation for Filipino migrant workers. Conversely, female participation or representation occupies a very small fraction of the total deployment pool, reflecting significant room for industry diversification. Filipina seafarers account for just 6.11% of the workforce, which translates to a small but distinct minority within the active crew population. Although it is small, I'm still happy about this particular development. This statistical reality serves as a quantitative foundation for the project, illustrating the critical need to investigate career barriers, specialized shipboard roles, and specific workplace challenges that women face when navigating this male-dominated global industry. Next slide. So comprehensive demographic data from 2014 to 2023 reveals a distinct civil status profile among registered Filipina seafarers characterized by a predominantly unmarried workforce. According to data generated from Marina in 2024, there were a total of 61,252 registered Filipina seafarers during this 10-year period. Within this group, single individuals make up the vast majority, accounting for 76.8% of the total population. And this high concentration of single women suggests that the demanding nature of seafaring, which involves prolonged periods away from home, may attract younger, unattached women or influence choices regarding the family planning and relationship commitments. In contrast, married and separated individuals constitute a much smaller portion of the registered workforce, indicating potential structural or personal challenges in balancing maritime career with family life. Married Filipina seafarers represent roughly about 1/5 of the population at 20.8%, while separated individuals form a negligible minority at just 1.5%. So the relatively low proportion of married women highlights the difficulties female maritime professionals face when trying to sustain long-distance marriages or manage domestic responsibilities while deployed at sea. This distribution provides critical social context for the project, emphasizing how marital commitments interact with retention rates and career longevity for women in the maritime industry. Next slide. As for the age distribution data generated from Marina in 2024, reveals that the registered Filipina seafarer population is overwhelmingly concentrated in its prime working years with a strong leaning toward early to mid-career professionals. The largest demographic segment belongs to 30 to 39 age bracket, which constitutes nearly half of the entire workforce at 47.2%. This is closely followed by a 40 to 49 age group at 26.7%, and the younger 20 to 29 age bracket at 9.1%. Combined, women under the age of 50 make up more than 90% of all registered Filipina seafarers, pointing to an active young to latent pool that possesses vital physical stamina and several remaining decades of potential economic productivity. In contrast, older demographics exhibit a sharp drop-off, while annual trend lines show a decade of steady growth interrupted only by global health disruptions. Women aged 50 to 59 make up just 6.7% of the total, and those in the 60 to 69 age bracket represent an even more negligible fraction, highlighting a clear attrition rate or earlier retirement among female mariners as they age. Looking at the chronological data from 2014 to 2023, there is a visible upward trajectory in total registrations that peak dramatically in 2022. The sharp dip observed in 2020 directly aligns with the global COVID-19 travel restrictions, which severely hampered maritime recruitment and deployments before bouncing back strongly in the subsequent post-pandemic recovery years. The table examines the trends and socioeconomic implications of retired Filipina seafarers who continue working past their compulsory retirement age from 2014 to 2023. The data reveals a steady growth period starting with just 2 workers in 2014 and peaking at 41 in 2019, followed by a sharp pandemic-driven decline to 19 in 2020, and a subsequent recovery fluctuating between 23 and 33 workers through 2023. So this phenomenon presents a dual implication. Positively, it shows that companies value and recognize the capabilities of these older female seafarers. Negatively, it exposes a deep financial security as these women are forced to remain employed due to a lack of savings to support their families. This economic vulnerability is further highlighted by the fact that they continued working through the health risks and restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic when they should have safely remained at home. Next slide. As for the occupational distribution data gathered again from Marina in 2024, demonstrate that registered Filipina seafarers are overwhelmingly employed in the international maritime sector rather than domestic trades. Out of the 61,252 registered female mariners tracked between 2014 and 2023, a vast majority of 51,283 individuals, representing 83.7% of the total population, operate on international vessels. In stark contrast, only 4% of the workforce, or about 2,424 individuals, are employed in domestic shipping, while 12.3% did not declare their sector. So this overwhelming preference for overseas deployment highlights the global demand for Filipino maritime labor and underlines the strong economic incentives, such as higher foreign currency wages, that drove female seafarers to international trade routes. Chronological trend lines across the decade, for instance, reveal that international deployments drove the overall growth of this workforce, showing resilience despite notable historical fluctuations. So the line graph shows that the international registrations experienced a steady upward trajectory around 2016, which was temporarily disrupted by COVID-19 in 2022. And following this brief decline, international employment rebounded aggressively to reach a sharp peak of approximately 15,000 registrations in 2022 before stabilizing slightly in 2023. Meanwhile, domestic employment and undeclared sectors remained consistently flat and low throughout the entire 10-year period, proving that macro-level changes in Philippine seafaring workforce are almost entirely dictated by the dynamics of the global shipping market. Next slide, please. So the 2023 distribution of the shipboard positions reveals that registered Filipina seafarers are heavily concentrated with hospitality, catering, and service-oriented departments. According to Marina data published in 2024, the most common explicitly defined roles belong to the hotel and galley sectors led by waiters, room stewardesses, and stewards. So if we merge these two, more or less about 1,000 plus individuals, and of course assistant cooks. So I did not change actually the category, but I assume that the room steward and stewards are basically the same. However, as I said, I maintain it as it is based on the data provided. This significant clustering in service roles reflects broader global maritime employment trends, where female seafarers are frequently recruited for cruise ships and passenger vessels. While these positions offer stable employment and vital entryways into the international maritime sector, they also underline a structural segregation where women are predominantly utilized in passenger service functions rather than for technical ship operations. In contrast, female representation within technical operational tracks and senior command positions remain exceptionally low, unfortunately, highlighting major barriers to career progression. On the operational side, roles such as officer in charge of the navigational watch and officer in charge of an engineering watch with 91 demonstrate a growing but still small contingent of female technical officers. This disparity becomes even more pronounced at the highest levels of shipboard leadership, where with only 36 women reaching the rank of master or captain and a mere 16 securing positions as chief engineer officers. Please take note that a good number of almost 4,000 replied others, which could reveal a better appreciation of the position if properly identified. Next slide. The distribution of deployed Filipino seafarers across Philippine recruitment firms from this period, 2014 to 2023, highlights a highly concentrated landscape dominated by a single major agency. So according to Marina, the RCCL Crew Management Incorporated stands out as the absolute market leader, recruiting a massive total of 25,174 female seafarers over the 10-year period. And this volume is nearly 3 times greater than its closest competitor, the Magsaysay Maritime Corporation, which recorded about 8,494 deployments. So beyond the top two industry leaders, the remaining deployment volume is distributed among a competitive tier of agencies that focus on a mix of cargo, offshore, and passenger fleets. So the United Philippine Lines Incorporated and the CF Sharp Crew Management form a strong secondary tier, followed by a steadier block of agencies, including, for instance, the TDG, MSC, Jebsons, and Bahia. So firms specializing in a more technical or industrial sector, such as the Soltad Offshore and OSM Maritime, round out the top 10 with just under 1,000 deployments each. Looking at the multicolored annual segments within each bar, it is evident that almost all of these agencies experienced their most aggressive recruitment growth in the post-pandemic years of 2021 through 2023, solidifying their role in driving the modern expansions of the Filipino maritime workforce. Next slide. So a case in point is the RRCL Management Incorporated, which details a decade of dramatic expansion, highlighting how the agency became the leading employer for Filipina seafarers. So in the early years of the decade, specifically 2014 and 2015, recruitment numbers remained negligible and close to zero. However, starting in 2016, the agency embarked on an aggressive growth trajectory with deployments climbing from roughly 800 to an initial pre-pandemic peak of nearly 3,800 in 2019. This multi-year surge reflects a period of massive expansion in the global cruise ship industry and a targeted effort to recruit Filipino hospitality and service personnel for international passenger fleets. Next slide. So, what challenges do Filipino seafarers encounter on board? Of course, I cannot get it from the data from Marina. So we decided to have actually a pilot test, supposedly for phase 2. So the qualitative findings for personal interviews conducted in May of 2024 with 12 Filipino seafarers, courtesy of the AMUSOP, reveal a pervasive environment of systemic barriers, led primarily by deep-seated gender discrimination and racial stereotyping. So this actually, this is not a conclusive finding, but based on the 12 responses, as professionals operating within an overwhelmingly male-dominated industry, every single respondent identified gender bias as the initial and most significant challenge encountered upon boarding a vessel. Co-workers and supervisors frequently underestimate the professional capabilities of Filipino mariners based solely on their gender or smaller physical stature, completely disregarding their proven traits of strong organization, versatility, and resilience under pressure. So this professional marginalization is often compounded by intersecting biases regarding their race and nationality, is often with supervisors subjecting them to discriminatory treatment that includes being forced to work extended hours without receiving just economic compensation. Beyond psychological prejudices, the physical and operational environments on board modern vessels fail to safeguard the basic safety, well-being, and psychological needs of female mariners. The respondents emphasize that the demanding, hazardous nature of seafaring is aggravated by institutional isolation, harassment, and a stark lack of gender-specific infrastructure. Vessels frequently lack standards. Sorry, Vessels frequently lack standard structural accommodations, such as designated female restrooms or private cabins, which severely compromises privacy and safety. Furthermore, the global maritime logistics chain regularly fails to account for gender distinct necessities, leaving female crew members without access to essential feminine hygiene supplies like sanitary napkins during long isolated voyages at sea. So these operational hardships are deeply intertwined with rigid cultural expectations in the Philippines that actively discourage women from entering the maritime sector long before they ever stepped on board. So traditional gender role heavily emphasized that women should remain anchored to domestic spaces, causing families to dissuade female relatives from pursuing maritime careers due to safety concerns and prolonged absences. Historically, the seafaring identity has been constructed around an imaginative division where the moving ship is an exclusively masculine domain, while the stable land is relegated to women and wives to symbolize home and stability. So this deep-rooted cultural framework creates an invincible social barrier, framing the choice of a female seafarer as an unconventional transgression against established societal and familiar norms. Finally, the severe social cost of balancing maritime contracts with extensive family responsibilities places an immense emotional strain on both single and married Filipino seafarers. While the majority of the interviewees were single, the lived experiences of the married respondents directly mirror broader industry statistics, where over 12,000 married mothers and wives routinely endure multi-month or multi-year separations from their households. Managing this forced division requires a what we call a grueling psychological balancing act between active shipboard duties and long-distance maternal care. And many female seafarers operate under that what we call as painful awareness that leaving young children in the custody of relatives or husband incurs a heavy familial toll, which can destabilize domestic support systems and in most cases lead to emotional breakdown of the family. For the last 3 minutes, as for the recommendations, next slide, the potential of women in the maritime industry requires institutional interventions that build an inclusive shipboard culture, support technical career advancement, and expand professional networks. Creating an environment of respect and inclusion hinges on enforcing strong anti-harassment policies, providing equal compensation, and mandating dedicated shipboard facilities like private female cabins and sanitary provisions. To accelerate this transition, shipping companies and manning agencies must be financially or operationally incentivized to actively recruit, train, and promote women into leadership tracks, specifically as deck officers, engineers, and ship management executives. Furthermore, fostering robust domestic and international support networks, mentorship programs, and leadership roles within maritime unions allow female mariners to collectively combat professional isolation, share experiences, and collaborate with advocacy NGOs to drive policy reforms. Concurrently, structural and regulatory optimization by state agencies is essential to lower geographical barriers and streamline the professional development pipeline for female seafarers. So the establishment of manning agency branches in strategic regional hubs across the Philippines, particularly in Visayas and Mindanao, would significantly reduce travel and administrative expenses for regional applicants navigating the registration process. On a regulatory level, Marina's data management capabilities must be modernized with upgraded online profiling systems that tracks geographic origin. I think it's very important, enabling policymakers to design targeted training interventions. Finally, empowering Marina to rigorously evaluate maritime education institutions ensures that gender-inclusive training, certification assistance, and flexible online training modules are fully integrated into foundational programs, ultimately helping women balance technical upgrading with their family responsibilities. So with that, maraming salamat and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santa Rita, for sharing these insightful findings. The data you've presented not only highlights important trends, but also raises critical questions about gender, labor mobility, and the need for more inclusive maritime policies. Truly, there's a need for investigating the gender disparity of Filipino seafarers compared to their male counterparts, and of course, to also address the limitations and the specific gender barriers, stereotypes, and the specific conventional norms tied with this concept of Filipina seafarers. So, to further enrich our understanding of these findings, we now move to our reaction session. Research findings become even more meaningful when viewed through multiple perspectives. And so we have our reaction session where our distinguished reactors bring expertise from the academia, policymaking, maritime education, and labor studies, allowing us to deepen today's discussions and consider its implications for research, practice, and public policy. So I'll first introduce our reactors, then each of them will present or lay down their reactions, and afterwards we will accept questions from the floor. So now, without further ado, let me allow me to introduce our first reactor, Dr. Lucia Palpalatok Tangi, whose research on Filipino seafarers spans nearly 2 decades of work. Her scholarship has significantly advanced our understanding of the intersections of gender, migration, and maritime work. Through her extensive research, she has documented the lives and the lived experiences of women seafarers and contributed to the policy discussions on gender equity, migration rights, and the inclusion of women in the maritime sector. Our second reactor is Ms. Preska Lee Betana Lugo, Maritime Education and Training Standards Supervisor at the Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina STCW office. And she has played a leading role in strengthening maritime education in the Philippines and was instrumental in developing the country's first ever International Maritime Organization model courses authored by our Filipino expert. Finally, to complete the list of our reactors is Dr. Maragtas S.V. Noy Amante. He is the Secretary and Research Fellow of the Center for People Empowerment in Governance, also known as CENPEG, and former professor of the UP School of Labor and Industrial Relations. So, a respected labor scholar and former Vice President for Administration of the University of the Philippines, Dr. Amante has extensive research in labor relations, industrial policy, and maritime labor research, including work with the Seafarers International Research Center at Cardiff University. We are honored to have all three of you with us today, and we shall now invite first Dr. Palpalatok Tangi to the floor to deliver her reactions to the data snapshot that Dr. Santa Rita has just presented. Please feel free to go ahead, Dr. Tangi.
Ayan. Yeah, magandang hapon po sa lahat. First of all, congratulations, Professor Santa Rita, for such a very interesting study. Okay, so I titled my, it's not just a critique, but it's more of how we can better improve your research. No? So beyond the map, elevating visibility to empowerment. Okay, so the paper Mapping Filipino Seafarers in the Domestic and International Maritime Industry positions itself as an empirical study that charts the distribution of women in maritime labor across both local and global contexts. This is a timely intervention given the historical invisibility of women in shipping statistics and the dominance of male centered narratives in maritime scholarship. So, if I may just share with you, no, when I was starting my research almost 2 decades ago, there were actually no statistics on women. So, I really had to start from zero. Okay, so while the studies descriptive mapping offers valuable baseline data, its lack of feminist framing raises critical questions about how visibility is interpreted and whether statistical presence alone can be equated with empowerment. This review therefore situates the paper within broader feminist debates, interrogates its novelty and contribution, and compares it with advocacy driven scholarship. But what is new with this research? The paper's novelty lies in its dual mapping approach. By converging both domestic and international maritime sectors, it expands the scope of inquiry beyond the familiar terrain of overseas labor migration. This is important because domestic maritime work, such as ferry services, inter-island cargo, and coastal shipping, has often been invisible in both policy and scholarship. The studies attempt to quantify and visualize women's presence in these spaces is therefore a welcome addition. So, moreover, the paper provides updated empirical data. So, it's 2014 to 2023. I hope you can extend it to 2025. I think the statistics are out now for 2025, which is valuable given the rapid changes in the global shipping, the impact of international conventions on labor standards, and the evolving gender discourse in maritime training and certification. The mapping exercise itself, through charts, tables, or graphic visualization, offers a methodological contribution, giving readers a clearer sense of distribution patterns. Next slide, please. So I'll just quickly show you this one. So what are the main contributions of the research? One is the, of course, empirical baseline. Second is comparative lens. And third is the statistical visibility. Next slide, please. Okay. So what are my critical insights? No, critical insights from a feminist lens. So from a feminist perspective, several critical issues arise. Okay, structural barriers, number one. Next slide, please. Okay, structural barriers. Mapping women's presence without analyzing barriers risks naturalizing their marginalization. Why are women concentrated in certain roles? Why do they remain underrepresented in higher ranks? Feminist critique demands answers beyond numbers. Next is intersectionality. The study could have explored how gender intersects with class, region, and ethnicity. For example, are domestic seafarers more likely to come from poorer provinces? Do international deployments privilege those with access to training centers in the urban areas? Another one is agency and resistance. Women seafarers are not merely subjects of mapping, they are agents of change. The study could have highlighted their organizing efforts, advocacy campaigns, and resistance to harassment, areas which have been also explored in other studies. Next is the policy implications. Feminist critique insists on moving from description to transformation. So the study should have articulated how its findings could inform gender sensitive policies in training, certification, and labor regulation. Okay, next slide, please. Um, yeah, I'll just focus now on the recommendations for improvement. So if I think if you want to improve the paper, we can strengthen the theoretical framing, situate mapping within feminist labor studies, maritime sociology, or intersectionality frameworks. Another one is to engage with feminist literature. Um, you can, I think we have a number of local and international authors on this one. You can also highlight agency, incorporate narratives of women's organizing and resistance, and it also articulate policy implications, move beyond description to recommend reforms in training, certification, and labor um, regulations. So just to conclude, next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, Mapping Filipino Seafarers makes a significant empirical contribution by consolidating data across domestic and international maritime sectors, thereby expanding the scope of inquiry beyond the familiar terrain of overseas deployment. Its strength lies in providing visibility and statistical grounding, which can serve as a foundation for policy and advocacy. However, its limitation is the absence of a feminist lens that interrogates structural inequities, agency, and resistance. Without such framing, the mapping risks presenting women's presence as progress while overlooking the systemic barriers documented in other scholarship. The significance of this research, therefore, lies not only in its descriptive contribution, but in its potential to complement feminist analysis, transforming visibility into empowerment and data into advocacy. For conference presentation and for future research, the author is encouraged to strengthen theoretical framing, engage more directly with feminist literature, and articulate clear policy implications, ensuring that the study contributes not just to knowledge, but to the transformation of marital labor toward gender justice. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Assistant Professor Tangi, for those reactions. I appreciate how you highlighted how our work does and should not end with just research and statistics alone, and there's really a need to amplify our advocacy and, of course, to address these issues through proper policy advocacy and making and ensuring that um, there's proper and appropriate groundwork to be done. Additionally, I really liked as well how you highlighted visibility does not equal to empowerment. And that's especially true because, as mentioned, it's not just about this data and the statistics that's the reason we're doing this types of events. It's also here to ensure that we've done the groundwork and that there's more to be done in terms of ensuring empowerment and, of course, um, achieving a more gender inclusive and representative field or sector towards the maritime industry. And finally, I also appreciate, how you incorporated the feminist lens of intersectionality as well, how different aspects life, like race, gender, class, can develop and interact to shape the experiences of privilege or discrimination. And we see it more clearly as well with the presentation of data that Dr. Santa Rita has shown to us today. Thank you so much, Dr. Tangi. And now, without further ado, I would also like to call on our second reactor, Ms. Presca Lugo to the stage. Please feel free to share your insights and comments on the data snapshot.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of our administrator, Madam Sonia Malaluan, our executive director, Sir Sam Batalia, I would like to thank you for having us here. This is a study that is very much welcome, and I would say this is very timely. What I would like to share with you are things and activities we are currently doing relative to female seafarers. Actually, my attention was just caught with the title Filipina Seafarers, because we in our documents we don't refer them as such, but rather we just say they are female seafarers. Okay. So I would like to share with you to start with our total registered and certificated female seafarers as of June 2 of this year. We have a total of 876,956 seafarers are registered. We have a total of registered, this is the total number of registered seafarers in our mismo account. No, certificated, I should say. In our mismo, we categorize our seafarers into two: those who are registered and those who are certificated. I will just focus on those who are certificated, and that is a total of, as I've said, 876,956. Of this number, we have only 77,322 female. And we did some kind of head count of the certificated seafarers, those who are officers and ratings. So the total workforce in terms of those of officers, we have 166,523. Of this total number of officers, there are only 1,456 female seafarers. These are officers. And we have 75,866 ratings. Okay. And that's a total of 77,322, as I have said earlier. And that is that it's not even 10%. It's only 8.82%. This is a current statistics that we have in our system. And I would like to note that you have mentioned that there is a need for us to modernize our system. Maybe that is something that we can share with you in another forum. But for the moment, what is it that we are doing relative to female seafarers? I would like first and foremost to share with you the programs of the International Maritime Organization, in which we echo in terms of policies, projects, and activities. In 1995, when the TCW was amended, they had included a resolution, that is resolution number 14, promotion of the participation of women in the maritime industry. That's the title of the resolution. You will find it in this book, this TCW. It is resolution 14. In here, the governments are invited to give special consideration for securing equal access by men and women in all sectors of the maritime industry, and to highlight the role of women in the seafaring profession and to promote their greater participation in maritime training at all levels in the maritime industry. Further, this resolution states that government and industry should endeavor considering ways to identify and overcome at international level the existing constraints such as lack of facilities for women on board training vessels so that women can fully participate and without hindrance in seafaring activities to facilitate in order to facilitate effectively in achieving the Millennium Development Goals, and that is to promote gender equality and empower women. Second, to support the provision of the on-the-job training opportunities so that women may acquire the appropriate level of practical experience required to enhance professional maritime skills. Likewise, the International Maritime Organization had designated May 18 as International Day for Women in Maritime. And this is to promote the visibility of women in the sector and highlights the importance of inclusive and safe work environments. And we have, the IMO have other programs and initiatives for female seafarers. That includes, this is the latest program, what is referred to as Smart Sea Women Project. This is funded by the Republic of Korea. This project offers specialized online and in-person training in decarbonization, digitalization, and gender empowerment. Also, in fellowships and higher education, particularly that of the World Maritime University and the International Maritime Law Institute, at least they are requiring, if we send delegation, 2/3 of which should be female. And we have other organizations like Women in the Women in Maritime Associations. We have very strong organization here, the WIMA field. And I heard also about the on certification. From Marina's perspective, the greatest actually in terms of policy, it will come from policies that translate equal opportunity into equal access through a seafarer's career. So we have these priority areas. You might have heard already strengthening of the implementation of the Magna Carta for Filipino seafarers, particularly provision on non-discrimination, protection from harassment, and decent working condition, expanding access to onboard training opportunities for women cadets and officer trainees, integrating gender-responsive policies into maritime education and training standards. So we have this already, and improving the collection of gender disaggregated data to support evidence-based policy making. And that's why I've said this is a very timely study. This will actually help us in our policy making. We have also mentorship and leadership development programs, both in seagoing and shore-based position. We have also the promotion of stronger partnership among government, industry, maritime schools, and international organizations to foster inclusive maritime workforce. While we do not have a special, treatment for women in terms of certification and training, but we will ensure that, how would I say this? While we do not have separate certification pathways for women, which reflects Marina's commitment to equal standards, greater encouragement through outreach, mentorship, career awareness programs, and industry partnership can help increase female participation in officers track promotion for female seafarers. So I think other information that I can share with you can be shared during the question and answer discussion. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Lugo, for those information and as well as to your reactions as well to the data snapshot, and for also giving us more recent data coming from Marina. You mentioned that there's about 1,456 Filipina seafarers out of the total of 77,322 seafarers, Filipino seafarers, I presume. So that's roughly 1.88% of the current Filipino seafarer population that's women. So you still see that there's still a domination of predominantly male seafarers in our current maritime industry. And we thank you as well for sharing the different initiatives, and also for one, the resolution created by the International Maritime Organization, if I believe, as well as the for sharing with us as well. It was last month, May 18, the International Day for Women in Maritime, or in the maritime sector. So what we can see from the reaction so far, and from what Ms. Lugo mentioned, is just that there's a growing awareness about the concept of Filipino seafarers, yet it's still such a small path that we're taking, or small steps that we're taking, and there's really a need to continue trainings and institutionalization of Filipino seafarers that we see. So now, without further ado, I would pass on the microphone to Professor Amante to discuss as well his reactions to the data snapshot that we presented. Please go ahead, Professor Amante.
Hi, it's nice to see friends again here. Ma'am Fresca, Dean Joffrey, and have new friends. Carrying on the life of the sea, the exciting life of the sea. I look forward to the response of my friend Dean Joffe to the challenge of Professor Tanguy. Tanguy. Because it's really difficult to explain why these barriers to women exist without theory. So I look forward to what theory will Professor Joffe use to explain the situation. Why there are only, I think his presentation said 6%, but now we have new numbers mentioned by Ma'am Fresca from Marina. And in that regard, that is, I'm so amazed, and this is very commendable that Dean Joffe was able to access and use the data from the database of Marina, because sometimes compatibility it's a very difficult technical question. So the challenge now is how to use technology, AI maybe, to generate, update, modernize the database. Not only, of course, Marina, but the whole of government, actually. Because you have, Ma'am Fresca said, you have to know the registered seafarers. Ang dami niyan. Diba? That's our supply. And the demand side is there's the MWs, formerly POEA, the deployment. And that's the more important data that you need to match. I have about 14 slides, but maybe I'll limit my comments because we have to move beyond. Because Dean Joffe's presentation really shows that most of our women seafarers. So Sir Joffe, take note of the recommendation of Ma'am Fresca. Please delete Filipina in your title. you say women seafarers, siguro. No, that's maybe more correct. Of course, it's good that we were able to have the first base to do this review for you. So because we are friends, so we have to help you. Otherwise, when you encounter our feminist, our gender theorist, ako, baka mag-rumble tayo sa term na Filipina seafarers. So we now have to move beyond cruise ships and put greater attention to the other seafarers. I mean, kasi the traditional, we call it. Some people say traditional, pero hindi. How many deck officers we have, and please take note of the distinction between officers and ratings. No? So that is also very important to note, because of course we wanted more officers. That's the advocacy of Ma'am Preska and our education institutions to have more officers. Kasi right now puro ratings, so karamihan sa atin ratings, no. That's the rank and file, we call it. So we need to move forward to that, because of technology is very challenging. So meron din tayong offshore. These are also called, they are also seafarers, dredges, mga stationary, not moving. I wonder how many women are there, how many female seafarers are there in these platforms. So baka may data o may case studies tayo. At ang pinaka-importanting suggestion, so ito yung mga questions, and I think Professor Tangi already mentioned some of these. No? Of course, our goal, how many seafarer officers, masters, chief, mga officers rank, yun sana yung tutukan natin. Pero so right now, dominated tayo ng ating ratings. No? Ang suggestion ko, not maybe outside the scope o ibang study na siguro ito Kasi I'm looking at the Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy. Ang dami nating Navy female officers. Ang dami nating rank officers to na magagaling, husay. Navigators and I know for a fact there are engine people there who are female na magaling din. So I think we should benchmark or future studies. So this is a challenge to Professor Tangi and the others who might want to go into this challenging and interesting world of seafaring and the analysis, the academic. We are academics. We are mainly looking at the data and trying to interpret and explain why is this so. So yun ang aking question dyan. Where are the women? They're missing. And ang ating fishing industry is also very important. So dapat tingnan din natin dyan. Sa tingin ko meron naman, no? Meron naman mga babae sa ating mga mangingisda, sa ating fishing fleet. Maybe. Pero wala yan That is outside your scope. I don't know kung that is within your scope. So nabanggit na yung mga maritime education, because you have to, from education, formally you have to look at the link between education and certification, registration, then deployment. So yun ang kailangan tingnan natin. At sa education, ang mahalagang statistic dyan yung cohort survival rate. I want, usually sa CHED ito kaya siguro may mga kaibigan din kayo dyan, Prof. Tangi and Prof. Joffy sa CHED. Kailangan ang database nila dun kailangan ayusin talaga, kasi I've been trying to access that at ang hirap talaga. Okay. We have to move beyond numbers. I'm trying to monitor the employment issues here at kung ilan yung mga seafarer cases. So yun ang kailangan na tingnan natin. Ang dami-dami pala ang binanggit ko, seafarer cases ang dami. Ang dami, and I'm trying to identify kung merong women. This is Supreme Court decision on women seafarers. Maybe illegal dismissal, harassment. Pero sa cruise ships usually yun. Sa cruise ships, yung mga decisions ang dami. So, binanggit ito ni Ma'am Preska, yung mga IMO, the role of IMO. Ang i-highlight ko lang itong ratification natin ng ILO Maritime Labor Convention 2012. At meron tayo niyan, 120 Republic 12012 ba yun? Hindi ko na kumpleto ito, no? 12021 yung ating Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. Bago lang yun. So, it's a very new law. So, mahalagang matingnan natin yun at paano, ano ang follow-up dyan at paano mapaayos natin yung kalagayan ng ating mga seafarers, no? At I have to also mention that we have a lot of other laws, related laws. Of course, the PMM, the STCW Single Maritime Administration Act that concerns the certification, registration, and the competency examinations, no? Certification, kasama yun sa certification. Of course, we have women, Magna Carta for Women, Safe Spaces Act, gender-based sexual harassment, baka relevant din yun. So I think that's all I could say, and I congratulate the Professor Santa Rita. But I look forward to your response to the comments, the question. Thank you very much. I'm done. So
Thank you so much, Professor Amante, for that presentation you have, as well as for your reaction to the session. And it's very interesting as well. You made a great research point to look into, maybe comparing Coast Guard and Filipina Navy with that of the Filipina Seafarers case. So perhaps we can see insights later on for our researchers and scholars currently present. And I also appreciate that the learning that there needs to be improvement in terms of the accessibility of data, in terms of our our government services, and also that while there are gender-based policies already intact, there's still probably a need to improve the implementation, or if not necessarily the implementation of these gender-based policies, perhaps the need to specify implementation or administration to female seafarers, especially within the context of the Philippines. So with that, before we head over to our question and answers. Of course, we'd like to thank our reactors, Dr. Tangi, Ms. Lugo, and Professor or Dr. Amante. And maybe we could also get some initial insights on the end of Dr. Santarita, if he has any insights or comments of what was discussed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is just only a brief response, no? And I'd like to thank actually Professor Tangi, Ma'am Lugo, and of course VP Noy for very brilliant enrichment, my comments on this project. I have to admit that I'm also reminded that this is only a data snapshot, so definitely we cannot put a lot of information. However, I totally agree that there's a need to put a theoretical or empirical framework on this. As an academic, I think it's very important. I'm at the very beginning, there is the concept of feminization of labor, but being a political economist, I'd like to look at it on a global market capitalism. However, I think as also a Philippine studies student, I'd like to look at it also on intersectional maritime lens, maybe gender bias, racialization, and of course the class dynamics. Of course, we can talk about different typologies on that later on. But I'm very thankful for this critical insights, Prof. Tangi, because we are planning to work. We are now actually working on a paper, a full-blown paper out of these materials. And I think it's very important on how to improve this mapping, especially when we talk about how the data should be interpreted, and definitely looking at on various aspects, not just only in the international, but also the domestic with a focus. And of course, I'm very thankful for that four lens of how looking four lens in looking at particular aspects. As for Ma'am Lugo, thank you very much because all the data of Pinoy, the data I have to credit it, no, and we are very thankful to Marina for this very rare opportunity to get the data. Now, why Filipina? Because we want to, because we there are, if we use female seafarers, it is understandable only within the Philippines, but we want to show that this particular study is about Filipino females, female seafarers. And from my end, I think it's more uh, suitable to use the word Filipina rather than female. Maybe if we decide Philippine female seafarers, if that's the case. But kasi nga, if in Filipino, in Tagalog, I'd like, if there's a marino, perhaps the best way is a marina. A small one with that marina as the agency. But yeah, it's just a matter of terminology. But for now, I'd like to register it as Filipina, referring to Filipino female seafarer, both in domestic and international. I'm happy that after 2 years that the data is now that the female figures, or the figures or numbers of Filipino seafarers are getting bigger. So in just a matter of 2 years, there's actually an expanse of about 17,000 certified. We're referring to the certified. I did not actually include whether it is registered or certified in the data, but I'm happy definitely to do that. Now, as to clarify, I am very familiar with the MISMO, although I don't see the entire, the system itself, but I'm familiar with the MISMO. What I'm trying to say when it comes to improvement is that maybe in terms of data gathering, because sayang po yung data na others lang ang nilagay. Because if we're talking about 4,000 others or Filipina seafarers responding to others as a position, I mean, that 4,000 has an implication when it comes to whether it is international or whether it is domestic, because related to the comment of VP Noy, and of course Prof. Tangi, the domestic is also very important, but I don't have the data. That 4,000, imagine if that's half of that will be for domestic. Well, it's actually a big number already to show that there are actually Filipino seafarers also working in the domestic. I'm not actually because I understand the situation based on that available data, but perhaps in the because I believe that the system is an ongoing process. Maybe if the selections or the options for certified or registered seafarers can be clarified. Yes. Thank you, Ma'am Preska, for that. Thank you. This is just only, I'm not criticizing, I'm actually just suggesting that to improve all those facets, because I think it's also helpful for us to make a recommendation towards the enrichment and to the development of Marina. I'm very thankful to that, Ma'am. As for the other aspects, I'm happy that you have several activities for the Filipino seafarers. For BP Noise comment, yeah, aside from foreigner officers and ratings, officers, oil and gas platforms, I'm very sorry, VP Noy, because I'm going to disappoint you. I don't have the data, and even the data right now, maybe I'm wrong, Ma'am Lugo, but the data right now that is available in Marina is only talking about those selections, I mean, positions available, but not necessarily mentioning about tugs, barges, and all those specific. Maybe in the other opportunities we can explore for improvement of that. As for the Philippine Navy and Philippine Coast Guard, maybe it's outside, tama po kayo, still outside of my purview, but it could be a very good material for researchers. How I wish we have the data for fishing industry, but maybe it's not within Marina's purview. It could be under Bureau of Fisheries, I think, and the PPA, no, Philippine Ports Authority. But I'm not so sure about that, VP Noy. But and of course the maritime education. That's the reason why we were able to discuss this with the Marina, no, CTW, and that's the reason why I included in the recommendation that perhaps the maritime education should be given, empowering Marina to have that supervision of the maritime education, kasi nga it's still under CHED and maybe a part of that will be under TESDA ba? Yeah. So of course the seafarer cases, we're looking forward, manganganak po itong study na to, and maybe with I'm looking forward to collaborate with Prof. Tangi for this because this is just only the onset of the maritime studies that we're pursuing. So maybe the seafarer cases can be explored in near future. So I'll end with that muna, and then we'll proceed to the open forum. Thank you very much to
Yes.
the actors.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santa Rita, and thank you so much to our reactors. We now open the floor for one question coming from our audience. Due to time constraints, we'll have to limit the questions that we'll be answering and addressing today. But just to keep the ball rolling, I do have a question. This is posed to Dr. Santa Rita and, of course, to our reactors as well. Just looking ahead, what policy reforms do you believe would have the greatest impact on promoting gender equality in the Philippine maritime sector, especially given the data snapshot that we have? And also, just to conclude, what message do you hope to share to the young Filipinos who are considering a career in the maritime industry? Maybe Dr. Santa Rita can start? Yes.
Okay. Yung policy reforms, maybe we can start with, siguro, very basic lang sa akin is, simulan natin sa, at the very beginning, sa education natin. There's a need to have a consensus, maybe, and conscious activity with regards to the consideration of gender empowerment, no? And of course, looking and give some credits also to this seafarer educational system. As for the ano nga yung isa message?
Yes, sir. What's your message to the young Filipinas who are also aspiring to be in the maritime sector?
Well, wag matakot siguro kasi nga there is actually an equal opportunity, both domestic and international, and definitely appreciate definitely their skills, no, in terms of their work, and well, we can start within their study and of course in their work. But yun nga, wag matakot because in a way yung siguro yung strength nung on studying, on pursuing, and of course in terms of working abroad, just like our OFWs, no, and ordinary OFWs. But of course, the seafarer requires a lot of patience and definitely strength and bravery, perhaps, to overcome this. So yeah, maybe it's time to definitely encourage the daughters and females to pursue, because time and time again, let's remember that we are an archipelago since time immemorial. Water is not actually a barrier, it is a facilitator of change and exchanges, and therefore not only males should be part of that, females should also be part of this. So yeah, so yun lang.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Santa Rita. And unfortunately, due to the time constraints, and seeing that there's no questions so far, can proceed with the reactions of our reactors, and then we'll conclude this webinar. So I see Professor Tangi here. Maybe she can also share her insights on the looking ahead, what policy reforms do you believe would have the greatest impact on promoting gender equality in the Philippine maritime industry sector? And your message to young Filipinas who are aspiring to be in the field of the maritime industry.
Yeah. Maybe we can start with that tama nga, no? We start with the education system. Sa feminist kasi we call this term, we have to engender our maritime schools, meaning we have to introduce gender as an integral part of our maritime schools. Why did I say this? Kasi when I visited a number of maritime schools a few years ago, yung mga mismong kalalakihan doon, they were against the entry of women. So doon pa lang, no, doon nag-uumpisa na yung discrimination sa maritime schools pa lang. So we really need to introduce gender mainstreaming right inside the maritime schools. And then secondly, siguro yung Marina can do something about this. Kasi we have our God policy. Maybe we can start with that, na God policy. Siguro propose ko lang in one interview, bakit kaya? Kasi why don't we disqualify crewing agencies na hindi those who discriminate women, no? Gawin natin parang incentive. If you want to be accredited, you should have a God policy. Siguro, maybe we can start with that. Mga simple lang. I think these are very doable. And of course, there are long-term solutions to eliminating gender discrimination. So siguro short message for the women. I think we should not allow biology to determine your destiny. I think that's the kahit ano pa kayo, LGBT, babae, I think you should not allow that to define you. Thank you po.
Thank you so much, Professor Tangi. Now, may I move on to Miss Presca Lugo? I think you have the
Yeah.
floor.
Thank you so much. I just would like to share with you that actually, there were ships wherein it was manned by all female officers, and there is KM Cacho. This is first ever all female Philippine leadership team, meaning the captain and the chief engineers are women seafarers from the Philippines. That is something that we can look into. And yes po, ma'am, under RA 12021, we are mandated to come up with a gender and development program for our seafarers, from schools. So I used to be connected with the National Maritime Polytechnic. We have a course, GSTS, Gender Sensitivity Training for Seafarers. And we are going to have the same program for our schools. And there is actually some kind of change already among the schools. You would note that majority of the schools have female seafarers, cadets already. And they are most welcome, and actually they are performing well in terms of academic performance. So that is, I think, Professor Santa Maria can look into. You can have a number of schools where you will see female seafarers. And if in terms of policy, as far as I'm concerned, what we need to have is to incentivize companies who will hire female seafarers. And well, this is true. This is true whether you are male or female. Our main concern, actually, our main issue is the lack of we call it birthing opportunity for our cadets to have their onboard training. That is one of our challenges. That's why we don't have the number of officers we desire. I mentioned that we have more than 800,000 certified, but only we don't have even 200,000 officers. So actually, that's our main challenge or number one challenge. So um for our female cadets, yeah, do not be afraid. In fact, I am the vice chair of APICSIN. Wherein we have a close coordination with a school in Korea, Kim. Every time they send us invitation, we make it a point that 2/3 of our delegates are FIS. So I think that's all for now. And uh, Professor Santa Maria and Lance, you can contact us here in Marina if should you need further information and data. But I would like really to thank you for having this research, because I have been like a voice in the wilderness telling people here that we need to process our data. You know, Marina is the main source of data in terms of maritime, but we are not really managing and processing it for our advantage. Now that you have started it, that's a good point. And just an information, we are under the Magna Carta for Seafarers. Marina is authorized to establish a new office, that is the office for the Deputy Administrator on Education, Training, and Certification. And I was the chair of the organizational structure. The focus of this office is on statistics and research, and so maybe we can collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miss Lugo. It's really important to have, the connection between academe, CSOs, and government. And finally, we have from Professor Amante his answer to our question of, policy recommendations and also a message to the Filipina women who are aspiring to be maritime, to be part of the maritime.
Yeah, I think Ma'am Presca mentioned a very good case. So I think you should follow up on that. Hopefully, andun pa yung barko na yun na puro babae ang officers at but baka bihira yun. But, sa Europe, ang daming European companies and European ships, marami ang babae. Sa Russia and sa Poland, ang daming Russian, we call it masters. Mga engineers. So I think we should learn how that is. At tama nga si Ma'am Lustang, we have to look at the schools. Pero binanggit ni Ma'am Presca, I have visited yung MAAP. Ang dami ng babaeng kadete doon at magagaling nga. John B. Lacson, may nakita akong mga engineers doon, no? I don't know about sa Cebu at sa Mindanao, sa Davao. Meron din. So I think it is progressing, and I hope from, I don't know, ilang percent kanina sinabi ni Ma'am Presca at ni Ma'am Joffy, mga 6% ba yun? 7%? Very few, no? So hopefully, time-bound tayo, 3 to 5 years, magiging 10% yan. And ang Fairless forecast ko, with the use of AI technology, yun ang maging equalizer. Women, I don't know, women might be better at AI. And ships now our smart ships run a lot of AI is already going ahead with running a lot of ships. Kaya if we don't master that, kung hindi natin makokontrol yan, AI will replace everybody, both male and female. Pero kung magaling tayo, we in the Philippines would be able to get our act together. Kasi ang dami na nating batas eh. We have Marina, but the demand side is there sa DMW. Ang NMP, ang training, andun saan ba ya? DMW rin yung mama, no? Yung NMP. O, biro
Under
mo,
DMW, yes po.
oo, and there's a lot potential. I heard ang isang balita ngayon ang dami daw libreng training doon. Pero when I last visited Tacloban at NMP, puro pa rin kalalakihan nakikita ko doon . So the government should lead. Dapat bumalik si Ma'am Preska doon. Siya naman doon. Babae dapat na manguna dyan. No. I think the current NMP director is doing well, pero ang daming libreng ino-offer, Pero yung it's high time that women should take the lead now in our maritime policy and regulatory institution. That's all. Thank you. We have a lot of laws already.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Amante, and a warm round of applause to our reactors and Dr. Santa Rita for such a wonderful and insightful discussion. Thank you to everyone who listened in today's discussion, and we hope this exchange has provided valuable insights and inspired further engagements in this important issue in the maritime industry. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us at cefalphilippines@up.edu.ph. And we actually do have not necessarily a question, but a response from the Q&A mentioning there is no international rule prohibiting foreign vessels from hiring female crew members. But if hiring is due to qualifications, we have a number of male applicants compared to the female. I would say male eventually will have high percentage to be hired. So perhaps that's a statement that we can ponder on as we go about the maritime industry and the maritime issues that's currently being faced right now. So with that, to formally close today's webinar, it is now my pleasure to invite the Director of UP Cefal Philippines, Dr. Michelle R. Palumbarit, to deliver the closing remarks. Dr. Palumbarit, the floor is now yours.
Yes, thank you, Lance. And it's truly a rich discussion of the topic, mapping Filipina seafarers or women seafarers in that regard. I'd like to thank Dr. Santa Rita, really Professor Santa Rita, for your interest and patience in doing this study. It's been almost 2 years. And finally, sir, we're almost done with this. Yes, and also there are so many rich insights, wonderful insights from our reactors, from Dr. Tangi. Specifically, what I gained is that, among others, that visibility does not mean empowerment. And truly, numbers are important, but the more important question is what goes beyond the numbers and what factors are at play that perpetuate gender inequality in the workforce, particularly in the maritime industry. And this number really is confirmed by the statistics provided by Ms. Lugo, where truly the number is very small. But Ms. Lugo, it's great to know that this study really can be of relevance and help to your policy planning. And of course, to Dr. Amante, thank you, Professor Amante, for really identifying the laws that really promote gender equality in the Philippines. But again, the million-dollar question still remains: why do women still remain underrepresented in the workforce? So, as mentioned by Dr. Santa Rita, this is just the beginning of the many, many more related researches that can be done and will be pursued by scholars out there. And after all that has been said, I'd like to reiterate in my welcome message in the snapshot that women are not merely passengers in the journey toward progress. They're also captains, they're also leaders, and the women must not only be welcomed aboard, they must be part in steering the ship because they are capable to do so. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and I'll give back the floor to Lance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Palumbarit. On behalf of UP Cefal Philippines, I would like to extend our sincerest appreciation to all of our speakers, reactors, partners, and participants for making today's webinar a meaningful and engaging learning experience. And before we officially conclude, we would like to share a few reminders to our participants. To everyone here, The mapping of Filipina Seafarers 2014 to 2023 data snapshot is now available, so you may access and download it by scanning the QR code displayed on your screens right now. We also invite you to follow the official social media pages of UP Cephal Philippines to stay updated on our future programs, research initiatives, and learning opportunities. Lastly, we would greatly appreciate your feedback towards this event. Kindly scan the QR code and complete our evaluation form before leaving the webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us to today's event, to today's webinar. We wish everyone a pleasant day ahead, and we look forward to seeing you at our future UP Cephal Philippines events. Mabuhay at padayon po sa lahat.